it's a vision that goes back to the beginning of our story, the beginning of the mythic narrative that gives us a sense of our identity as people of God. It is a beautiful vision, a vision of a beginning that's full of light and life, of abundance and bounty, a vision of a beginning that is God's own making in the world, God's voice creating and recreating. It is a vision of a humanity shaped by God's self, God's breath animating it. It is a vision of walking in a garden and of connection and community and possibility, of beauty and peace and wholeness. It is an amazing vision. But then we know what happens next, don't we? We know that initial vision begins to show signs of its own fragility. Humanity up to their own devices, and that sense of agency begins to crumble. Human beings end up in enmity with one another, and in enmity with all of creation. And so it begins, this back and forth. God, transcendence itself, love itself, humanity, creation at enmity with one another, day to day, year to year. But there is this hope that emerges time and time again. At every point of hopelessness and desperation, there God is. At every point of sadness and loss, there God is. The voice of God calling to a return, to a restoration of all things to God's self. A promise and a hope that no matter how difficult it gets, that's not the last word. We need a vision like that, don't we? We, like the ancients, are prone to forgetting. We are so prone to get so caught up in what's happening in this very moment in our lives, all the dis-ease and all the brokenness and all the strife and all the enmity. We so prone to what's happening right before us, all the antipathy that we sense in the world, and the division and the fragmentation and the anger and the despair. We overwhelmed by the suffering of our fellow human beings, and we wonder, is this it? Will God forget? Has God forgotten? What are we to do in the midst of this life of ours? And so there comes a vision at the end of time. And so there comes a vision that is revealed to us in light of the struggles of life. This vision is born out of the struggle. This vision is born out of the humanity. This vision is born out of the everyday life of those long ago. And yet it's a vision for us in this very moment. This is not a vision for some kind of eschatological future only, for a future yet to come at the end of time. It's some of that, but it's a vision for us in this very moment. Did you hear it? A new heaven and a new earth. Did you hear it? The home for God is among mortals right here on this earth of ours. Did you hear it? No crying there, no suffering there, no dis-ease there, no death there. We know that hopelessness feeds on a lack of imagination. In the midst of our lives, we can lose the ability to imagine a better way. And often in the powers that be, the powers and principalities of our world want to zap that creativity and that imagination away from us. They want us to forget so that they can stay in power and go at their agendas that are dehumanizing and dignity violating and that keep all of us down and out and in enmity with one another. We, like the ancients, are prone to forget. And so one of the antidotes that we have is remembering. The rehearsing of a different reality, not just for us, but for the world. And in today's vision from this revelator, that what comes to the surface is a reality, the reality of the beauty and joy that is this created life of ours. That this creation is beautiful and amazing, given to us by God, and that it has bounty and possibility, that we can trust this creation that surrounds us to have all that it needs so that we can flourish, that it has all that it needs so that all of us can flourish, no matter who we are in the world. There is enough. And so often it's our scarcity mindset that brings fear, and that fear that brings enemy making and enmity between us and neighbor. And so the first thing we can do in these days is have an imagination for plenty, an imagination for abundance, an imagination for possibilities for you, for us, for our neighbor, and for the world. This vision does something else. It reminds us that God is not this transcendent other that we cannot access, but that instead that transcendence is present and active right here, right now, in this present moment, in this world of ours. This is a beautiful gift, the home of God among mortals. You and I, finite beings, and yet transcendence present right here, right now. As the gospel often reminds us, eternal life, life in God, life with God, life through God, present and available in this very moment for all of us, you and I and the world. This home is beautiful. This home is plenty. This home is full. This home among mortals is where God is, and we can reclaim that. We're reminded of that when we gather for worship week to week, but also it happens in the most everyday ways of life. As we wash dishes and take the trash out, as we read the news over our coffee in the morning, as we send our children to school, as we check in with our parents after a long day, as we greet co-workers around the water cooler, and as we're waiting in the red stoplight, as we head home at night, the home of God among us in the day-to-day of life. And then there's another imagination. It's an imagination for a different kind of world. This new heaven and new earth have a distinctive feature that reminds us of how God created the world in the beginning. This is a world where enmity doesn't exist. This is a world where dis-ease doesn't exist. This is a world where struggles and trials and suffering does not exist. It's a hopeful imagination for that possibility, and we're called, aren't we, as people of God, to rehearse it a bit, but that imagination triggers us into possibility. What does it look like for us to come together in the midst of so much suffering around us in our world? What does it look like for us to come together as God's own people in this vision to ease the suffering in the smallest of ways? What does it look like for us to be agents of healing and to be agents of reconciliation and to be agents of new life, to be agents of connection and community, to be agents of building a different world, start in your own homes and go out. A different family structure where you handle each other with this love and this commitment and this opportunity and this imagination as you meet neighbors and you get to know them and in their humanity, in the midst of their life, in the midst of the differences that are there and the quirks of personality, and you begin to figure out a way to live life together. Okay, expand the circle a little more and begin to imagine this new world among your larger neighborhood, and then your city, and then your coworkers, and then the folks you go to church with, and you go through the differences of each other, because we are different, and you get through the obvious ways in which we can find enmity and division, the fragmentation. You get through it. The commonality is this God, this transcendence, this love. All of us made in that image. That commonality then calls us together. And that imagination for this kind of world begins to be generative. It is. It catches us. I don't know where you are today. Maybe you find yourself in the midst of dis-ease and suffering and struggle. If you're there, the good news of Jesus is that you're not alone, that this God's home is among mortals in the midst of that life, and God is with you in the midst of that. But maybe you're just feeling a bit despairing and disconnected. Maybe you're tired of seeing all the bad news on television, all the suffering among the folks around you, among immigrant peoples, among trans folk, among folks who are gay, or maybe you're exhausted of the bad news about the federal cuts to Head Start or Medicaid, or you're worried, what will happen to our hungry neighbors and to our neighbors who need child care, or what's going to happen to our neighbors or family members or friends who have a federal job, or what's going to happen with folks that are facing violence of all sorts right now in this moment. What's going to happen as I see people around the world in such deep suffering, children dying, so much. Maybe that's where you are. The home of God among mortals. In the midst of that, we being called to be agents of a new heaven and a new earth. We've been called to a new imagination. We've been called to look up and be agents of possibility. We've been called to come together and then together work in our own ways, in small ways, in the day-to-day ways, to create moments where the reality of this new life can be made known, can be experienced even for a moment, where the pleasures of a good heaven and a good earth can be enjoyed, the bounty of creation can be enjoyed, the connection of this creation, the community of this creation, the companioning of this creation, this God on this earth, this vision begins to be rehearsed in such small ways. And who knows, as we do this in our imperfect ways, we, God's own people, could it be that others begin to see it? They finding hope, they finding meaning, them finding new life. Could it be that in our striving by the power of the Spirit, others might look around and see, oh, we have experienced this God. We have experienced this love. We have experienced this new life. Oh, we have been transformed.